All right. So give me a moment. I'm going to try and figure out all of my screen situations here. Okay, can you all see just the screen? You don't see my notes?
Right?
Yep.
You got
Yes.
it. This is perfect.
Well
All
done.
right. I try to be professional. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me, MABC. I am Mary Jane Connor. I am a creative director here in town. I have a few gigs I'm working on. I'm working with Eric at Flamingo Theory, which is super exciting. And I am also the creative director at SuperNet Inc. That's an not intellectual property, internet service provider that provides, they have fiber all over the city and a great community focused organization, does a lot of support for the arts. When you fly out of Madison, the free Wi-Fi is provided by SuperNet. So just giving them a little plug because I am the cheerleader for them right now. You can find me at maryjaneconnor.com to check out some of my work. And just to give you a little bit of background, I have a degree in art, a master's in art history, and I got into marketing when I started to put together art shows for museums and galleries and discovered that I was really interested in getting the people in the door and finding creative ways to actually get people into museum shows. So that kind of led me into marketing, and then of course the art and design came into the branding, and then conveying that message through the visual identity, because I have that background in art and art history where I just made art and talked about art, came together really well in this career for me. So that's kind of how I ended up in creative direction. And I have been on this kind of random mission for the last 12 plus years to help small businesses and nonprofits become creative, clear, and consistent in their communication. So that's what I'm doing now. And yes, today we're going to talk about how not to ruin your brand with Canva. Full disclosure, if you're looking for tips on how to use Canva, I am not going to be able to tell you how to do things with Canva. This is kind of more conceptual and going into branding, but there are probably other people here that we can have a conversation later if people are looking at how to actually like do things on Canva. I have used it, but not exclusively. I work mostly on Adobe. So also, if you have some scratch paper, we're going to have some activities later that some scratch paper would be very helpful for. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, just a quick outline. We're just going to do a quick review of what Canva is. I assume most people know, but we'll cover that just in case. Of course, we're going to discuss some ways that you can ruin your brand with Canva. We're going to have some tips to stay on brand. We are going to play some games, and then we can hang out and dish about branding and Canva. My favorite topic of conversation. Okay, so what is Canva? It is a free graphic design tool. It can help non-graphic designers make either really great designs or really terrible designs. Fun fact that it did start as a yearbook design tool, and you can hear more about that on the podcast, How I Built This. And if you all haven't listened to How I Built This ever, I highly recommend it. It is very inspiring for entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of like misery loves company and hearing about the woes of building a big business. And most entrepreneurs I find very fascinating. So, all right. And what can you use Canva for? Canva has a ton of templates to get you started on a variety of projects for your business. I started hearing most about Canva through like social media templates for Instagram. Everybody was using that. But you can also create letterhead, posters. I don't know if you know this, but you can create comic strips now. So I thought that was pretty exciting. I haven't taken them up on that yet, but I might. I'm curious to know if anybody just wants to shout out what they use Canva for.
So I just created a proposal yesterday for a client for LinkedIn. They want to get a LinkedIn account. So Yeah, created a document.
Cool. Awesome.
I've used it for
Yeah.
graphics, proposals, videos, a number of different things.
Sweet.
Yeah, I use it to resize banners, photos for social media
Fantastic.
and web graphics.
Cool.
Digital Christmas cards.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
learned about it at an MABC program many years ago by Candy.
Oh,
And you
nice.
probably remember that?
I don't know if I was, maybe, I don't know if I was there for that, but yeah.
I think my daughter is using it in her digital art class. That's one of the things they're allowed to like explore.
Wow. Yeah, it's super powerful and quite ubiquitous now. I think that it's definitely giving Adobe a run for their money in that sphere, which I appreciate. I don't like monopolies, so cool. Okay, awesome. Anybody else?
I've used it actually through Mike for backgrounds like this in virtual Zooms.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, in addition to banners for social media and such.
Fantastic. Yeah, so a lot of people are using it. Great. So we're all using it, mostly, besides me, apparently. But it is possible to ruin your brand in Canva in at least 3 ways. And I'm curious to know if anybody's run into this, but one would be to miss big promotion dates because they're having software issues. 2 is creating and using unoriginal design assets. Like we'll get into a little bit more about why that's problematic. My favorite topic, inconsistent branding. And I thought of another one recently was doing comic strips instead of doing your work, which I think might happen to me one of these days. So the first one let's talk about is the missing important launches. So Canva does experience issues kind of at least maybe once a week in average with the software. So far in February, there's been 5-ish incidents recorded, and this is from Canva's own website. They have a check Canva or canvastatus.com. Issues range from downloading designs to like you can't download designs, can't publish websites, can't access the templates or any of the elements, or unable to access the software at all. So given that you may not be able to access your designs, is there anything that people might do to avoid missing these important launches? What do we think we can do to miss important launches? I bet you guys will get it on the first try.
Like
Work in
download
advance.
it.
Yeah, download it, Mike.
Work in advance.
Yay! Work in advance and download your work. You guys nailed it. Don't procrastinate. Download a backup. Now, I know
Mary Jane planted us in this group, right, for these correct answers.
I did. It worked out perfectly. Good job, guys. Right on cue. So the other things you can do, like as I know, we are all busy business owners, and sometimes we might just put it off. So you can go back and check that canvastatus.com to see if there's any other issues with it. If you're the only person experiencing that issue, it might be user error, which 50 to 75% of the time, it's usually my fault if something's not working. Probably more like 90%. So you can double check and make sure you're using one of the supported browsers, which most people probably are because they're the like Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Edge. Then make sure your browser is updated. And if you're working on your phone, make sure the app is updated. Make sure all your computer is updated. And then, of course, clear the cache and cookies. And then my favorite, fix it, never fails, turn it off and on again. And then you might be on your way to success in launching your promotion. All right. Okay, so Canva has a great library of slick logos, right? But why do you think it might be a bad idea to use one of the logos from Canva? go ahead and shout it out, anybody who has any ideas, but maybe not
Wait.
Heather and Mike, so we can prove that you guys aren't just here to answer my questions.
You
I
can't
mean,
trademark
someone
it.
else is, yeah, someone else is probably using it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You can't trademark it, and somebody else is probably already using it. Woo, you guys are on it. So, not trademarkable and could possibly be confusing. Canva, explicitly says on their website that, or like in their, I don't remember where I found it, somewhere on their website, says logo templates are customizable, they can be used by anybody, therefore you cannot trademark it. We know that a logo or a trademark has to be completely original. You have to be proving that you're using it to make money. And they don't sell any exclusive rights to anything on the website. So if you start using it and then you're like, well, maybe I can get it. Nope, don't ask. I mean, you can always ask, it never hurts to ask. And then they even say, hire a professional graphic designer, right, Heather? Hire a professional graphic designer so that we can make one for you that is completely original and really speaks to who you are as a brand. The second part, which I think, is equally as important, if not more important, is that it can be confusing. You could have somebody out there with like this garbage business, not like a garbage business, but like a bad business that could be using the same logo as you in the same industry, and the customers could be confused and be like, I'm not going there. They run a terrible business. They have terrible reviews because you both have the same same logo on your Google profile. And then also you don't want people to confuse your business with somebody else's and go there on accident, right? So don't put a bunch of hard work into something that somebody else is using. And for either of these reasons, trademarks or it being confusing, you don't want to rebrand, because you think doing a logo in the beginning is expensive. Wait till you have to redo all of your collateral and all of your websites and everything, because you just, have to rebrand that because you used a Canva logo. So just don't do it. Don't think it's good enough for now, because you won't change it until you have to. And that is after you have done all of this hard work. You have given your business card out to, hundreds of people, and then you have to redo it all. No, thank you. So excellent answers. And now my favorite topic of conversation for some reason, which I might have insight into that I realized while doing this presentation, but inconsistent branding. So look at all of these fun TikTok templates you could be using for your business. They're so cute. They have thousands of templates on, what is this? Canva, millions of graphics, all kinds of photos that we can use. So I'm pretty sure that we've all seen a colleague maybe use a template that doesn't quite look like them. And I sympathize with people who decide to use a different template, because it is easy to get bored creating the same thing every day. And you think everybody's seen this already, but that is the point. Like when you are establishing a brand, you have to be consistent and you have to be recalled. And even after you're established, you need to stay consistent, right? Canva knows this, and so do Fortune 500 companies. And the big companies that are using Canva use Canva for Teams, where you can actually set brand controls and lock, like take out all of the other extra, all of these templates, anything that doesn't have to do with your brand, you can take that out. And that's what the big companies do, so that their teams don't get tempted by all of these cute designs.
Mary Jane.
Yeah.
It made me think of my oldest child when she was like 2. We would be driving around and she would know, she couldn't read obviously, but she would say, there's McDonald's and there's Toys R Us. And so she didn't know what it said, but she knew because it was that consistent. Is that what you're talking about? Like that they didn't change the M to a wonky M. Right. Exactly. Or a color or whatever. Right. She knew at age 2 what it was without having to read it. Is that what you're talking about?
That's 100% what I'm talking about. Okay. In fact, I have a story. I'm going to talk trash about one of my best friends who lives in Germany right now. So he was saying, we were talking, people were talking about their kids, and then he's like, Johan started learning how to read he recognized where Melanie, his wife, was working, the bank. He said, "Oh, is that where mom works? That's KLM." And I said, "Joachim, he recognizes the logo and the color. He doesn't know the letters, sorry." But yeah, that's exactly it. So we start learning about brands very early in life. And we all have the brain of a 2-year-old. It's got to be consistent. So not really. We don't have the brain of a 2-year-old, but if we want to be able to be recognized as quick as as if you are 2 years old and you could just see it that fast and know what it is.
And you actually want that, right? Like you
want
want,
that.
even though you're bored with it, you want
Yes.
them to see the same thing
You
every
need to
time.
be immediately recognizable.
I got it.
We'll talk a little bit about that, but yeah, you want to be immediately recognizable because there's so much information out there and people are literally like just, I think about yourself on Instagram, right? And you're just like practically unconsciously like using your thumb and like scrolling through. If you don't use your brand color consistently, say, for example, and they will not know that you showed up to talk to them today. And there will just be no recollection of that you are there. People may not like really stop to pause even, but at least they can probably make that connection like, oh, Heather was here today. I see her light bulb,
Mary Jane, talking about consistency
Mhm.
and something that really threw us off is I just returned with my family from Sedona, Arizona recently. And there was a McDonald's. We all know of the golden arches. They weren't golden, they were blue. And when I saw McDonald's with a blue arch, it was completely non sequitur. It completely threw things off, but it might have actually brought in business because people were looking at that from a different perspective. Still the same design, but just different coloring. I didn't understand why.
That is so interesting. I'm going to make a note to look that up because I cannot believe. So McDonald's is a franchise. And so people can own them. And I'm kind of wondering if somebody went rogue and just did it and McDonald's hasn't like seen it yet. I'm going to have to look this up. See me trying to find scratch paper? I did not have any handy. Blue in Sedona arch. McDonald's Sedona, Arizona, right? Okay, cool.
Yes, Sedona, Arizona.
Awesome. Okay, so that is exactly what I was just about to get to, is that we are inundated with messages. And that Heather, I swear, like literally that was the paragraph that was up in my notes and you just brought me to it and I don't have to do it anymore because we just talked about it. Another reason we want to stay on brand is because, as our branding lovers know, when you create a brand, you're trying to create a feeling and you don't want that for a specific target audience. And you don't want that feeling to be like totally upended and somebody confused, like the blue arches. I'm like, why are you making me feel all cold? McDonald's, I've been feeling warm for years and invited and happy and optimistic. This blue, what are you, cool now? You don't want to do that. So yeah, we want to stay consistent because you want people to recognize you and you want them to have the consistent feeling that you're trying to create. Branding, is not just your logo. It is really about everything you do. So if we have all of these cute, sorry, I always do that on my thing, but so how do you stay on brand with all these shiny Canva templates? You create yourself some creative guidelines and you document them and you stick with them to create that feeling you want to convey and remind yourself of what you're doing and why you're doing it. I look at my guidelines, like I looked at them when I was making this PowerPoint because I was like, maybe look at all these cool PowerPoint designs I could do. No, Mary Jane, look at your creative guidelines. It should be your refuge from temptation. It literally provides me calm when I have like all of these like potentially cool things I could be doing and I get overwhelmed. I look to my guidelines and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's why I decided to do it. And I still think it looks pretty cool. And I could go and talk all day about what could go into your guidelines. There's as many things that could go into your guidelines as Instagram templates on Canva, but you could have everything from your mission and your vision and your values, which I highly recommend because that's what should inform all of your creative decisions, in my opinion, to a name tag design, to how you answer your phone, when a client calls you. So you could put all of that stuff in your creative guidelines. For today, I'm just going to focus on sort of the bare necessities to ensure that you look like yourself on social media. That's my focus for today. Because that's where a lot of people are spending their time. But you can apply these everywhere. Apply these guidelines to everything you do, not just social media. Okay. So we're going to look at some pages from a business called Monarch Fitness Coaching that's in Evanston. It is a client I worked with through Busy on their brand identity. And one aspect of your visual identity that you'll want to cover is your typography. Your typeface or font is really important. And in fact, there is studies out there that demonstrate that people will choose a product based on the appropriate font for that industry. So for example, say you're looking to go bungee jumping, which would be the last thing I would ever do ever. But say you're looking to go bungee jumping and you find a business, but they have like an old timey calligraphy font. What would you, for their logo and on their website, like what would you think of that calligraphy or that bungee jumping business? Do you think you would go there?
That their stuff is old and not safe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I would not choose.
Can't
that.
bungee from a wagon.
Right. Yeah, right. It's like, why would you choose that? So you can see that typography is really important. And even if you're the only person in your business, I still recommend creating these guidelines to remind yourself of your creative decisions and why you did it. And then you can decide if these new cute bubble letters are on brand for you, if you will still be recognizable to your fans, and if it creates the feeling you want to create. So always look back to your creative guidelines and choose your typography carefully. The next is brand color. You'll want to document your brand colors. Again, brand color is incredibly important. It can increase quick brand recognition by up to 80%. For your fans. So help them make those quick connections, like those McDonald's arches, like, that's McDonald's. Stuart was like, what the heck is this? Is this even McDonald's? So use those consistently. Document them. You can see we have different codes for the different processes of color. But if you're, working exclusively pretty much on screens, you can worry about like the RGB and the web with the hashtag, the hex code. So you can start small and expand as you expand into new media, and then document why you chose those colors and the feeling you were trying to convey. In this example, they were using the red, orange, yellow as sort of a idea of transition that aligned with the monarch butterfly, and also the yellow for a sense of optimism. Oh, to give you a background on Monarch Fitness Coaching, Heather works with primarily older clients that have, pain and want to be back in life, in an active life. And her tagline is transforming the way you move, I think,
Through life.
You move through life. What is it? What is it, Brooke?
Transforming the way you move through life.
Yes, thank you. I wrote it with Heather, but I have just forgotten. I was pretty sure it's. We need some really good copy for that one. So that's what's going on with brand colors. Oh man, I was supposed to ask you what you thought of the colors and what it was supposed to transition. I told you. I gave away that answer. That's okay. All right.
Hey,
And
Mary Jane, I have
Yeah.
a question for you.
Yeah.
For typography, do you have to have the same typography for everything as what your logo is? Can that be different?
It can be different if, for example, you want to use a more like, I'm just going to use this example, not that I'm recommending it to anybody, but if you want like more of a scripty font in your logo, but that does not translate into actual writing, then use it, pick a different font for your, headlines on your website and your body copy. And a lot, it does not have to match your logo, but it should, complement it in some way, or at least convey the same sort of feeling overall that you're trying to convey. But I mean, I think like a sans serif pairs really well with a script font because it's nice and clean, versus like the scripty stuff. So you could use the script as embellishment throughout your designs, and then use like a clean font for the other parts. And then also, even so, for example, on like you might pick a font for your logo that isn't easily available on website platforms. So you can also find something that's very similar, or that's what we tend to do. So it doesn't have to be like completely the same all through. A lot of the times we find something that's just what it's similar. But then just document where you have the different fonts. Yeah, Heather.
Mary Jane, is there a certain, might be a dumb question, but is there a certain letter or number that you look at to compare? Like, let's say you have the font that you always use and you go to this place and they don't have that on this platform. Is there like the letter A that I should look for? Is that, or the number 3 or something? Is there a go-to letter or number to compare?
I do kind of
Tuning
start.
fork.
What'd you say, Brooke?
Like a tuning fork or something.
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
tuning fork,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm serious.
That's a great question, and I don't know. Maybe Heather or might know, but I look for, like, I start with A's to see what the A is, right?
Mhm.
But then there's just wonky letters in there. They're like, why did you do that? Sometimes they're like lower for some reason, like whatever reason the designer decided to make it really unusable in some way. So I look for, in the font that I'm using, I look for letters that might stand out a little bit, and then go through the other font and see if they're similar.
Okay.
Heather, how about you? Do you have a tip for that?
I a lot of times I'll start with the name or the logo, whether it's the person's name or the company name, and I'll just start to identify that first to see how those line up. And like you said, I think A's and E's, I feel like when people they're not used to reading cursive anymore. So you really have to be careful with some of those script fonts. So I look for, does it look like a handwriting versus the older cursive that I might be used to? So back in the days, I used to just kind of line up all the different, type it out and then just kind of line it up to see what matches the closest to what I'm looking for. So
Yeah.
You can also, in Canva, you can upload the font that you want, if you have the pro version, not in the free version. So you can go purchase whatever font you're looking for and not have to, mess around with only the free fonts. So
Yeah. And just to bring that up, like, a lot of fonts are free for personal use and free. Not all of them are free for commercial use. So that's just something to kind of be aware of if you're worried about getting sued and just giving people rights to the art that they created. But Google Fonts has like a ton of fonts now that are all free to use, and there's a lot of variety there too. But yeah, just wanted to note that. Great
And then
question.
stay tuned in April, because that's when Jennifer's going to talk about intellectual property. So
Yeah.
there you go. Good
There you
plug
go.
right in there.
Exactly. Okay, so
Thanks, Heather.
photography, yes. So as we know, Canva has like a massive library of stock photos that we could use. So I like to document what are acceptable photos and what are unacceptable photos. And then also some creative parameters, like if you always want to look for brand colors in your photos, which is a really nice idea that carries through some of that brand recognition quickly. What sort of scene, I like to document what sort of scene or content I'm looking for. For example, again, Heather wanted to, show people that look like the people she wanted to work with. So we have this older couple who's playing soccer with their, grandchild or something. And she wanted to have it look like real people living an active life, as opposed to a skinny model in spandex in a sports bra on a beach doing nothing. So this would be a tempting one to use for a fitness company, but that is not at all what we were trying to convey. And then you also might want to document some example posts. So, and this was like kind of tricky because Heather was saying that she gets photos from people who have had success with her program. And so, for example, this woman could like now climb up a ladder without being scared that her knee was going to give out and she was going to fall down. But it doesn't have any of her branding on it. So what we did was develop some creative parameters that would make it recognizable or at least align it. Also said like, these are okay for stories, but maybe not so much as a post, right? Because a story is something that's going to go away. But if we want to like look at a grid that's nice and branded, then maybe this wouldn't be the photo we choose for that. But as you can see, we popped in her logo down there at the bottom and then used the brand colors in the copy that we were using with the hashtags. So you just want to find ways to make your brand easily recognizable. Okay, so now let's play a little game. Let's have a little activity. So if we think back to Heather's guidelines, or Monarch's guidelines, do we see any of these templates that could be used right now and be completely on brand?
Maybe the yellow one, the yellow up at the top,
This one?
that bright yellow color seemed like that was in her wheelhouse.
Right, so we could use this color, but is this totally on brand with her?
I'm going to say no, based on the way you're.
I have a leading question. Right, so let's say this is a great one to start with. What would we have to change on this template to make it on brand? Anyone?
Be the
I'm gonna-
font.
Yeah, font.
Have to change the font, yep.
Her logo.
Could add her logo to make it more recognizable, yep.
You have to match the color.
Yep, we'd have to match the color exactly. It's close, but it's probably not exact. And a little trickier is even this treatment of this graphic may not be on brand, right? This, is my cursor there? Can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, see how this is like this little torn sort of edge and offset? Like that may not, I mean, I didn't give you a lot of background on that, but that, may not be on brand for her. This is like a very stylized thing that if you're not using that consistently, doesn't look like you. The quotation treatment can be something that can be on brand or off brand. And then this sort of, even the background color here, might be off brand. So you always want to change up these templates until it exactly feels like who you are. Something like this, the font is a little bit different. You could change, if she was doing a giveaway, you could change these colors to all of her brand colors and change this font, and that might be usable. It's a pretty similar font, or if you could change the font. But even if something kind of looks like you, like there's usually more that you have to change to be completely on brand. We'll do some more activities to kind of hopefully clarify this. Okay. But first, we'll just talk quickly about the Canva subscriptions. It sounds like most people know about all of this. But if you're using Canva exclusively for your designs and you have Canva Pro, you can create a brand kit with your logo, your colors, your fonts, some pre-designed templates. So those are all ready for you to go. And then if you have Canva for Teams, that's what allows you to set those brand controls. If you really can't control yourself or your staff, you can set in those brand controls. Okay. So now let's get to some games. As we discussed, started playing games, I think, that would help us with brand recognition before we even knew it. And I don't know if you all remember this game. One of these things is not like the other on Sesame Street, but this was my epiphany. I loved it when this came on Sesame Street. Like I was so excited about one of these things. It's not like the other. I was like, maybe that's why I love this consistent branding like job, because I really like picking out things that don't look like the other. So let's, oh, we don't need our paper and pencil yet, but we're going to go to this next slide. And we're going to play which one of these things is not like the other, or at least most unlike the other. And feel free to shout out what you think is most unlike the other in this row.
You want us to type it in the chat?
If you want, I don't see any, I can't look at the chats and
Oh, okay.
talk at the same time. I'm very bad at that. I am focused. So if somebody wants to read the chat and be my assistant.
Lots of D's.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Great. That is definitely the one that I thought stuck out the most too when I was looking at this. Do we know what brand this is? Who knows what brand this is?
This is a Nike advertisement, it looks like.
Yes. How did you know? How do we know it's a Nike advertisement?
Yeah, so B, C, and D actually all have Nike shoes in the photo. My pick was actually A because the shoes are cut off at the bottom.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
did too.
Yep, me too.
Cool.
But the guy in the stands, you can actually see his shoes.
He's like holding his
Fair
foot.
enough.
Yeah.
I know. I am surprised that the Nike logo is not presented in there.
Well, and even B looks more like loungy, and even the cartoon in D, at least he's like running on this path, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
know.
This
We're
is
probably a horrible market for whatever they're wanting us to buy.
Me too. Well, I don't know. You're a runner. You're a runner, Heather. You'd think they were trying to appeal, you know? So yeah, this honestly like kind of confounded me. I think that, you know, Nike can get away with being inconsistent a little bit, and they have expanded to like a big lifestyle business. Some ways that a lot of brands utilize or make themselves recognizable is by using their logo consistently. Funny thing is when they had like a series of these types of photos, and I was like, that's 100% Nike to me. Like that's the just do it. That's the like get out and play hard type brand that I am used to with Nike, and even like do everything hard. Like the Colin Kaepernick, one of my favorite commercials ever on a Super Bowl was that one a few years ago. You know, and it was just like, just whatever you're doing, do it well or whatever. And it was so powerful. And then they like have this person just lounging in a pair of like Nikes, and it angers me, honestly. Getting back to one of these things is not like the other. This angers me to see. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything, Nike? This isn't you. And then this was just like, honestly, when I was looking through this, I couldn't figure out why it was Nike but a lot of people picked this out right away. So that's good, I guess, on their part. But I have no idea what they're trying to promote and why they are using that. So when we're small businesses, you know, we don't have like 1 million followers that are seeing this over and over. We have, you know, a couple hundred maybe that are following us. So you really need to, you know, be consistent so that people can recognize you quickly. How long do you think it took you to recognize that it was Nike? Was it immediate or did it take a minute?
C was immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That helped.
yeah,
And
that was
Serena is like one of the
Yeah, Serena was a
icon.
clue.
Okay, cool. Good. So we can kind of see how Nike could be more consistent if they wanted to be in front of us right away. Okay, so now, now get out your paper. Get a quick sneak preview. Trigger happy on my
Teaser.
finger there. I hit the down button. Okay, so write A, B, C, like you're gonna write A and then you're gonna have a guess after that, right? Like we're gonna write A, B, C, and the next slide I'm gonna give you 10 seconds to write down the names of these 3 brands. We'll see if we can get these brands. All right. And then write down, like, you don't have to go in order of A, B, C, but just write down like the first one that you recognize first, etc.
So wait, before you click, Mary Jane, you're gonna put up 3 companies
Yeah,
and their flyers or their posts.
Yeah, they're gonna be
old
Instagram
school
grids.
flyers, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna want us to look through them and see if we can guess which company is A and which company is B and which company is C.
yes, thank you, Heather.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. I'm getting too excited about it.
I know. Is anybody have any questions before she shows us what we're supposed to do? All right, the
Okay, here
teacher
we
and
go.
me, here we go.
I know, I love it. It's so good to have you here. Otherwise, people would be like, what are you talking about, you crazy spastic person? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. You get 10 seconds. Time's up. Okay. Who, if we want to put in the chat, and Heather wants to read for us again. It looks like Heather's still working. Who knows A? I can't see everybody. Maybe I can like here. If I can. But yeah, who knows? That's a good guess.
Roast beef. Beef.
Roast beef
It's
is
what's
the
for
brand.
dinner.
I say Old Spice.
Okay. Yes. A is
Oh,
Old Spice.
what does beef have to do with that?
I don't know, but I assume it has something to do with a pile of meat and manliness.
Whoa.
They must have had some promo or something going on with Arby's. I don't know. I honestly didn't look that close into it. Okay, who knows B?
Diet Coke.
Yeah. And how did you recognize Coke?
The bottle.
The bottle. Okay, that was the first thing you recognized.
Somebody said color and font.
Yep, definitely. Red color. Yeah, that's what I recognize immediately with Coke is their color.
Wait, and Ed, were you the one who said that was Old Spice?
Yeah, it was. I got
How
that.
did you know that?
Yeah.
The bottom right image with when the guy holding the.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
remember those commercials stick out because they're just weird commercials. So. Yeah.
Hey,
I
think
got totally distracted by the roast beef.
right.
I really did. I couldn't get past it. I was like, I don't know.
Well, and then they have Arby's right next to it. So you're like, is it Arby's? Right. And so like, imagine you're scrolling through your phone and you would have no idea that was, I mean, of course they'll have their Old Spice logo at the top of it, but you'd never have no idea that was Old Spice. You're like, okay, Arby's. So maybe they had a little trade thing going on, a little collaboration. Maybe Arby's was posting some Old Spice
The
stuff.
horsey sauce up above, the guy riding the horsey.
Oh, yes, could be. Old Spice definitely has this like kind of what would you call it? It's like a comedic machoism type thing. Bianna, hey, I just saw you. Hey. So right, but I think the Old Spice is a little hard to recognize right away.
Yeah.
But they
different than the bottle with the red and white and the Coke. I mean, that, like Susie said, that kind of screams. The red is like the yellow McDonald's M, right?
Exactly. Okay, what about C? Anybody
I
get
think
C?
C is Canva.
Yep.
And I think if you look at like the second to last row and the second column, that gradient sort of like thing gives it away.
Oh, nice call, Bianna. Totally.
But I'm always doing social media, so I'm always in Canva too. So I like know what Canva is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Absolutely. That's a really good call because that is in their logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gradient. Good call. Because right, Canva is all over the map because I guess they're trying to show all of the different things that you can probably do on Canva. But I, would never know it was Canva. So I feel like
that one could have easily tripped someone up. I feel like it's so all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
that's a tough design challenge. How do you make a consistent brand that stands for all brands? That's tough.
That is tough, right? I think what could they? So what could Canva do to make themselves a little more recognizable?
I think like what Biana said is a great, that little triangle gradient thing. Like I feel like having something that's the same in every sort of marketing material they put out there. So you see that and you recognize, oh, it's Canva, and the rest of it's all something cool that Canva can do. But
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any other ideas? Yeah, that's a great one. Using that sort of gradient more and more, and like could just be applied in different ways, or they could have a consistent thing down at the, like a little emblem down at the corner or something. So, okay, now what are we doing next? I got to minimize my screen here. See my next slide. Okay. Well, I just have the answers here. So that was great. Which one did you all recognize first? Which was the easiest to recognize?
Coca-Cola.
go.
Yeah, Coke for me.
Yep. Coke is like the brand master, right? They're very good at it in a number of ways. Like one is, so these are interesting to me. This I'm not quite sure about because Coke, usually has like sort of this sense of carefree spirit, optimism, sort of happiness. Even though red is not necessarily a color that always evokes that, but they do a good job of creating that. And then this down here is kind of like this weird, almost, I feel like, techno dystopian type situation. So I don't know what they're doing there, if that's an energy drink or something they got going on, but I felt like this was a little off brand. But they still have their red Coke there, so they make sure that color is everywhere.
It's consistently rated one of the most valuable brands in the world, I believe.
Yep, I think you're right. Yeah.
And then
All
Mary Jane, obviously Coke has like people who are designing this and know this. So why would they go in a different dark purple direction? Like why would they go off brand? Or are they trying to create a new brand? Or
Yeah, I mean,
I don't get it.
I'm not sure why. I would imagine that this is a new like product that they're kind of trying to launch, and that their brand architecture is for some reason they allowed that to take on a different feeling because they're trying to reach a different audience, perhaps. That's one reason.
But you don't recommend us trying to go off brand.
I do not recommend any small business trying to go off brand.
Right.
No.
We're not Coca-Cola.
But does anybody else have, like, Eric, do you have any insight on why they might be doing that?
Yeah, just kind of why they're pushing their brand into different spaces.
Well, that's to make money, but but why they might like deter from, there's typical, like, why isn't this can red and white,
I mean, yeah, like I think, it's a different product that probably they want to convey a different feeling for the product. Coca-Cola classic, I feel like that red color gives you that classic feeling, but they have their proprietary typography that it's Coke, so it's Coke, but then they can kind of get creative with the rest of it. And that's kind of what I was saying with Canva earlier, is if you have that one thing that someone sees and they, boom, I know it's that brand, you can get creative with the rest of it, as long as you don't get so creative that they never get that initial trigger that says, oh, okay, I know who it is first.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that they still have their font, their typeface up there.
And it looks like whatever that can is, that must be some kind of, I don't know if it's like it looks like a diet product or a seltzer, a flavored Coke or something different, something new and different. So
I would be surprised if it lasts. I've never seen anything of Coke that wasn't Coke stay unbranded, right? They usually like pull it off after a while. Didn't they have like or was that Pepsi? One of them had a really unsuccessful like attempt at rebrand, and I think it was.
That was Coca-Cola. They tried to completely change their formula.
New Coke. I was just going to say that, Mike. Yeah.
Between New Coke and crystal clear Pepsi, there was some ill-advised attempts at messing with what works.
But don't you think the new Coke was on purpose, where everyone just welcomed back
That's a
the
good
old
point.
Coke so much?
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Conspiracy.
the whole
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, that would be a very bold marketing move.
Yeah, right.
I like it though, could have been like, no,
It's a
no.
gamble. It's a gamble. That's an interesting, Brooke. That's some conspiracy theory level stuff right there. I like it.
I like it too. I like the conspiracy branding.
But free publicity, so.
Yeah. I haven't heard that theory before, but I might write to this guy who I listened to this podcast called Under the Influence. It's really fun. Do you listen to that, Eric, at all?
No, I don't. I might take a look at it though. That
Yeah,
sounds
it's pretty, he's really entertaining. He just tells these stories about sort of marketing and a lot of like risk taking in marketing and advertising. And I'll have to write to him and be like, hey, we have this theory. This new Coke, a risk taking in branding, like on purpose.
I mean, I think nowadays that general idea of no news is bad news is really true more than ever, because there's so much content and so much noise in the space now that, the only way to break through is to do something sort of controversial and different and crazy. And, it might not be the safest way, but it's the only way to stand out too.
Yeah.
So
He has some really, really good ones.
yeah.
Yeah, I will. If there's time later, I'll share my favorite, but we'll keep going. Okay. Let's see. What are we doing now? Okay. So we're going to play which one of these things is not like the other again. This is a startup to watch. Like I was just looking at this startup list to see how startups are branding. This is a company out of San Francisco. And so which one of these things does not look like the other? Feel free.
Bottom middle.
Pie chart.
Yep, pie chart. Like, what the heck is going on there? Is it
Why not just say
Valentine's Day
pie?
and they are trying to keep the green? Like, I don't understand.
Why not make the pie chart an actual pie?
Yeah,
Totally. Why not
Well
make the pie
done.
chart?
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So yes, this one does not stand like the other. Now, when you see this, you'll see why this upset me so much. This is a screenshot of their website. They have really cool graphics and a brand, right? Like maybe not totally aligned with what they're doing. I might have some things to say about that, but like in general, if this is the brand identity they're working with, what could they be doing to make these photos more recognizable?
Use some of those logos, like the little starry article blast or the green Saturn or.
Exactly. I would just pop one of these things. I mean, I don't know. I guess this is their whole logo. You could pop that in every single image that they have or incorporate them somehow. What about the photography? Is there anything about the photography that they could do besides like popping in extra graphics that might align it?
Add some people in there too. I mean, they've got on their website people rather than just a close up of the food.
Yeah.
Because it's grocery shopping. It's not, it looks like, right?
Not cooking
Grocery shopping.
necessarily.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's not like, yeah.
And
They should probably finish the statement of Meet Jupiter, the first creator driven.
Yeah.
driven web.
where is that?
They're in the middle. Oh, sorry, in the middle of their website. They
Oh, the creator driven. I wonder if it was like, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't even notice that.
I think it's supposed to be first creator driven articles, how it worked, like maybe those icons, the names of those icons. Right
Oh,
below
you know
it.
what?
Maybe
I
that's,
think I cut these out from somewhere. Yes. This
oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Maybe not.
So sorry, this was not a screen. This is just a top.
All right.
Good call. I'm like, really? No kidding, Jupiter. Get it together. No, get it together yourself, Mary Jane. So I think something I like to do with photography is incorporate brand color into like all of the dishes or little accents around the photo shoot. So, you know, this plate does not, none of these plates, this is like kind of a color, but it does not match with this whole thing going on, right? Like you could be using the flatware to match. You could be setting up a glass in the background to match. Yeah, like they're just pulling stock photos, I guess, and doing it. So if that's the case, if you don't have, like, if you're not doing a photo shoot, then you can, you know, use some of the graphics. You could put a color overlay over part of the color. You know, you could use your red and just kind of put a little triangle up here with some things, just some things to add. And you could do different ones, right? They don't have to necessarily all be the same, but they should convey the same feeling and use your brand color. So that's how I would maybe brand those a little bit more tight. Okay, so those were that. This is kind of, now we're at the recap point. How can you stay consistent? Develop creative guidelines. Put your typeface in there, your color, your photo examples. That will get you started. And then also, you know, if you have some of these little graphics that you want to use, put those in there in your guidelines. Look at your guidelines before, during, and after your creation to check to make sure that you're on brand. Change Canva templates as much as you need to. They're a great starting point. I love, even when I was in the making art, I made art with collage because I could cut things out and not start with a blank canvas. So I really like starting with an unblank canvas, and using these templates are a great way to do that, but just make sure everything is on brand and really feels like you. And then if you have Canva Pro, program all of your stuff into it, your colors and your fonts and things. So it's all set up for you when you're ready to go. How can you ruin your brand? Okay, do we remember what's the first thing you can do to ruin your brand?
Miss the updates.
Yes, miss deadlines.
Miss deadlines.
It was close. I knew what you were talking about, Eric. All right, what's the second thing you can do to ruin your brand?
Inconsistent branding, like inconsistent in what you're posting.
Yes, that's
Look and
number
feel.
3. That's not on my, I will hit that one later. Good job, April. What's the other one?
Use
Not
one of their
ba-
logos. Oh, sorry.
Or not backing up your files.
Not back. That is another way that you could miss deadlines under the miss
Okay.
deadline category. Great job.
You
Don't-
get distracted with too many other choices.
Yes, that's another way you can be inconsistent. That's great.
We're building your list here.
I know.
You
Eric
said
keeps
not
trying
to,
to
not
say
to
it, but I
use
love that
their,
other people keep jumping in. And like just
don't use
myself.
their stock logos, right?
Yes.
Because you can't.
Don't
yeah.
use a template logo. Yes, because why?
You won't own it.
You won't own it. You can't trademark it. And
It's confusing.
very good. Very good, Heather.
Look
Yeah,
at me.
because everybody uses the same
Woo!
one. Whoops.
I am rocking it today. Who knew with my
You
kids
are.
off
You
from
nailed it.
school and my
I know.
coffee, and I'm going.
Ready to rock on a branding. Okay, sweet. So that's how you can ruin your brand. You all did a great job. That was super fun. Now, do we have any branding questions? Anybody have anything they want to talk about? We're at 9:30. I can't remember, Heather. I'm going to stop sharing for
I
now.
do have a quick question about the difference. Maybe you could briefly tell us the difference between the free and the pro, and who you would recommend spend the money to get the pro, or why, or if it's not even necessary. Or can you talk on that a little?
Yeah, I would not buy the pro because I mean, I guess if I was using it a lot, it's really nice to have your colors in there and everything, so you don't have to like reprogram those. But I think if you start building a design, you could just go back to that design and those colors will already be there. Biana or somebody that uses it more, can you speak to that? More.
I have pro, other than having your colors, and then if you work with clients, you can put their colors in
Cool.
as well with pro, so you can have more than one brand color palette set up. So that saves a lot of time, but the resizing tool in pro is worth the investment for me alone, because you can take a square social media post and tell it to resize it for a banner, it resizes it and then you just have to adjust the design elements to fit the layout, but you're not recreating from scratch. So that alone is worth $120 investment a year for me. But
Oh, is it just a year?
yeah,
I second that with Mike. I feel like I really like the resizing sort of thing because before I got pro, I would have to create a whole nother design before I could like change it to like, you know, the dimensions for a different social media platform. But I also like that it has a lot more options when it comes to like designing too. Like when you get pro, you get access to a whole bunch of other stock photos that are good to use and also like just design elements in general. And so you just get a lot more access that you wouldn't have with the free account. So
Yeah, it's only, I think, you know, I set my clients up with it because for them to maintain their social and all of that, it's just, it's much more user friendly and I can create it for teams and give them all the parameters. But you know, so it's like what, $12 or $14 a month type of thing. So for the pro, I think it's well worth it for any business owner at that. And, you know, too many times I see, you know, to what you said, Beyond, about the photos, people will grab a photo and it has all of the Canva watermark on it and they don't realize it. I'm like, oh, you know, all you have to do is do the pro and it just makes it a lot easier in that sense. So.
Especially if you're looking at like an alternative of Photoshop, which is quite a bit more expensive. And, you know, I'd say 90% of people don't need what you can do in Photoshop anymore. That used to be the only game in town. So you had to do it if you wanted to do any kind of graphic design. But now Canva commercialized it or made it more accessible for everyone, which is great.
Honestly, I'm thinking about switching to Canva.
You know, the other thing that I've done recently that is really handy is, so I do online courses for branding for businesses, and you can, in Canva, you can use your slide and you can hit now record, and your circle, you know, little screen down the bottom is just your face, but then the rest of the screen is the Canva, you know, is your slide presentation. And it's really nice looking. It's really slick. If you don't want like a whole square like me in this frame right now, you just want a close-up so that the screen, and you just hit present. You can download that. Obviously you want to, you know, in a present form, manual or automatic, that sort of thing. And that's been something that I've changed over. I had some glitches with Zoom recently and live streaming into a group, and I was like so irritated, and I happened upon this. I was like, oh my gosh, now it's like my new favorite way to present.
It's really cool.
So yeah, it is pretty
And
nice.
is it just as easy to invite people to join on that?
So you would live stream it. So it would
live
be, yeah, it'd be like an MP4 that you would save, you know, that you could use for something. But then if you're gonna live stream it into a page or a group, so to your point though, Brooke, you wouldn't be able to like engage like this. It would be in the chat, that sort of thing, if you were gonna obviously live stream. But when I'm doing it more for like an online module course, you know, on-demand learning type of thing, which is perfect, you know. So the other thing that's really nice is that you can also print your business cards. So if a client wants to do their business cards, you can print your cards, which I've done, and they come in like 5 days. They have great paper choices, really nice and thick. And, you know, anymore, it's like I used to design and I'm going to order 500 business cards. Not anymore. We don't need that many business cards. So I'm like, I can order 50 with one QR code and change the QR code for somebody else. And it's like $18 for 50 cards.
Really?
It's like easy, you know? So anyways.
They're nailing it. I think they're doing it.
There's a lot that they're offering. And yeah. I keep wondering, you know, I just was on the other day and it's like, you know, be our 15 millionth design or something, because it does surprise me how much you can really have in there and still only pay $14 a month. I'm like, I feel like the price is going to go up here soon because, yeah, so we'll see.
Eric.
One question I have, this is a really good topic, Mary Jane. Thank you I feel like I use Canva quite a bit, but just talking with everyone in this group, I've learned already like 30 more things I'm not using it for. So thank you. I appreciate that. One of the questions I have too is kind of a question for the group, but now that Canva has become so popular and so many people are using it, probably the biggest challenge I have is keeping your brand individual when everyone's kind of using the same templates. Like Biana, especially for this might be a really good question for you. I think especially with social media, when we do social media postings and competitive reviews for clients, you can almost tell which companies are using Canva to make their social media posts, because you scroll through their feeds and you're like, yep, all right, this looks very similar to this company and this company. So as user friendly and accessible as it is, how do you keep it from looking like everyone else at the same time if we're all using the same tools and templates? And I know that was one of your how not to ruin your brand things. So I just wanted to go into that a little more about, how to do that.
Well, I think, and Brianna could talk about like the once you get, but like you really need to set up your individual brand first. I wouldn't use Canva to create a brand, because it will just look like a template on Canva then. So that's when you go to somebody to really get into who you are, what you're trying to convey. You go to somebody with the training and the artist background, or the artistic or graphic design background, to understand your concepts and create something original. And then we can create, as artists, stuff even on Illustrator or to make who you are. So you're not using those graphics from Canva, you're actually using your own graphics designed for your brand. And then Biana, if you want to add in, you do a great job.
Yes,
I
and
was gonna
Biana,
say-
please share a little bit about yourself too. We're getting all your expertise, and I want you to make sure you get a chance to introduce you and your business, and we're glad you're here.
Yeah, well, my name is Biana, and I am a virtual assistant, and I also do social media management as a sole proprietor or freelancer. And so I do a lot of just like random like designing in Canva all the time and building.
Biana, are any of
templates.
your clients in this room?
Brooke is one of my clients.
Oh, that's right.
And so I'm helping him kind of create some graphics for his book, and it's really exciting and really fun. And I think I just love to be creative too. So I think I'm naturally just a creative, and so try to just dabble in a little bit of everything, but mostly social media. But to get to Eric's question, I think the great thing about Canva is how user-friendly it is and how you can like create base level social media templates, but it's also buildable. Like they have a whole bunch of like elements in there, like gradient effects, and like you can also kind of like layer things on top of each other to make them a little bit more complicated, so they aren't super like 2D. And so I think just adding on to just Mary Jane, you can have your own elements that come in there, but then you can also layer and play around with like, making images transparent and like just messing around with the different effects that they have for the elements that are in there. So I think the more you kind of play around with that, the more unique your design can be. And so, yeah, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about how to differentiate your social media from others when everyone is using the same thing. It's really versatile in there, what you can do with the elements.
And another thing we do is create templates or backgrounds for clients that they can just upload, and then put things on top of it too. So you'd have a starting point that's more uniquely branded than what you can start with on Canva. But there is a ton of tools in there. Biana and I work together at Busy, and she created some excellent posts that were very on brand based on, what our guidelines said. So
thank you.
So consistent, but then also change it up. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you don't have to use the same exact thing every time, but like using those key points of the same colors, the same sort of like, for like Busy, for example, we were using sort of like a mid-century sort of theme. So like the more flowy kind of
abstract shapes, kind of blobs.
Yeah.
And so if you can kind of evoke those in some way on like a social media post, that'll keep it on brand. And also just like using the same colors, like the brand colors too. make it a little bit easy. But yeah, it's I really like, I know when you first started, like when you first start designing social media posts, it can be kind of like, okay, well, I feel like I've done everything, in terms of like what I can do for a post, but then like Canva does a really good job at having those other things. They also have like effects like glow, where you can add it so it looks like it's popping off of the screen. They also have like dual colors, so you can kind of like fade out some of the images that you have and add your brand color on there. And so yeah, it's really, I feel like I learned something new every day with Canva. And so it's a really cool tool, but you can definitely make things a little bit more unique in there for your social media.
One thing I was just going to add, sorry, really quick, that I was thinking of earlier during your presentation, Mary Jane, which you did a great job. I loved playing games too. I was like, oh, that's really fun. I'm going to have to do that sometime. I like that game thing. I was like, I didn't think about it. I like which one of these is not like the others too.
I know,
anyway,
right?
Yeah, so fun. But in Canva, so when you're in there and you've got the pro version with your photos, so let's say, your color is purple and you want to find somebody, you can actually search photos, businesswoman in purple, and it will filter that. I mean, it's really pretty extensive how much you can, or older woman, you can really kind of narrow in quite a bit, even in the Canva photos. So you can really keep on brand with your photography as well, which is really helpful. And I find too, the deeper you go in the photos, the better, because the top ones are generally chosen the most. So go deep in that scroll so that you don't, look like everybody else, or crop the picture different, things like that are going to also look different. But I love that feature of being able to add what color I want in there, or, age, person, or doing something. You can specify quite a bit in the search for photos.
Great tip. That's awesome.
Other questions, or just love the expertise in the room. Thank you guys so much. Important. And now you can quiz us in the next month and analyze all of our posts and see if we're doing what you taught us, Mary.
Yeah. Oh, I will check in.
Right. You'll have your grade book right there.
Yeah.
F, or no.
You'll just get an email of which one of these things does not look like the other, Heather.
Right.
With a screenshot.
Right. I'll be your guinea pig if you need me. But and I do love, Heather, too, that you brought up the idea of playing games and playing around with stuff. I mean, that's part of instructional design, is letting people get their hands dirty and try it in a really low risk. We can throw Nike under the bus easily, right? Or Coke, and say, gosh, they did a horrible job, because it's not our brand. It's easy to use the skills then, where we're not feeling that risk of having to put ourselves out there. So really good instructional design right there, Mary Jane. And Heather, good.
I learned from the best. Candy and I took your class way early, like 2.5 years ago. And I was like, all right, play games, write stuff down, ask questions.
Yep. It's good. Well, if nobody has any questions or other comments or other upcoming events that anybody needs to let us know about, we are going to dismiss class early. Good job. I do want everybody to put down April. Oh, well, I would say next month is Josh Clemens, who is in town. He is another marketer, digital storyteller, really interesting professional that's in our area that's going to be presenting to us. I met with him already to talk about his program. So that's next month. And then Jen is going to be in April talking about intellectual property, which is really important topic that I think a lot of us don't think enough about, probably, and you want to set yourself up to not be in trouble. And then that evening, so that's the morning, is virtual MABC on April 13th. And then in the evening is going to be our first MABC Live. So, and it'll be hosted at Busy with Wisconsin Small Business Development Center also. So mark your calendars, lots going on. If you have updates for me, let me know and we'll put it in the newsletter and off you go, unless anybody else has something to flag me down. Great. Have a great day. Enjoy the snow or ice. Thank you, Mary Jane. We appreciate you.
It was great. Thanks for all of your participation.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.